Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. I just want to pop in here for a second before we get started with the show and just say the Patreon is live. So if you want to go over there and hang out with us on the Patreon, building that community, that's patreon.com/conscious environment creation. So patreon.com/conscious environment creation. And over there we have promo codes for the bonfire site so you can get a little bit off on your merch, whatever you want to grab over there. But we have behind the scenes footage. You guys can vote on different topics. If you want to be the producer level, you can actually just have whatever you want me to make a podcast about within reason, and I will make it. So let's hang out together. I can't wait to keep building this community with you. All right, on with the show. Hey, welcome back to the Conscious Environment Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week, I am super duper excited because I get a chance to sit down with one of my favorite creatives in the entire world, and that's Batsu. And the reason why I am so interested and love what Batsu does is I, at heart, am a Blerd, 100%. And I love high fantasy, and that's exactly what Batsu has created with Tales of Guardim. So we got a chance to sit down and talk about what Tales of Guardim is. It's an animated web show, and I'm not going to be able to do it justice right now. I guess you're just going to have to let them explain it. But we talk about Tales of Guardim, we talk about Blerd culture, we talk about a lot of the different stuff. But I hope you guys enjoy the conversation.
Let's just get started. The way that we start the podcast here is what's your name, what do you do, and where can people find you? And then plug all the things.
There's a little bit of feedback. But my name is Batsu. What I do is I have a fantasy show here on TikTok called Guardim. It comes in two different flavors. There's Guardim, the main series, and then there's Guide to Guardim, which has a little chibi version of our main character, Yask. And it follows the trials and tribulations of the main character, Yask, who is considered one of the strongest Nightskins out there. And it also follows the story of Yorisu, who was the one who gifted all the Nightskins their great powers. And it's pretty much a TikTok exclusive series right now until we branch out. We are working on branching out in different things. So you can just find me at Guardim Official here on TikTok. And that's GUARDIM Official right here on TikTok.
Cool. I love it so much. I've been watching it. I've been following along, catching up on the lore. I feel like I jumped in a little late, but that's something I want to talk about, because a lot of times folks think that like us aren't really a part of high fantasy or don't have deep lore to the things that we do. So what made you kind of I remember the story of the Nightskins thing, but for those who weren't on the app or were on another side of TikTok, what are the Nightskins? What happened? How did we get Nightskins?
Okay, so this is how it all started. So on Twitter, there was a post highlighting Black voice actors in anime. So a lot of people were like, oh, that's cool. There's more people of color doing voices. And then someone else tweeted out, our holy war against the Nightskins will never end. We must something like uplift the Aryan, blah, 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 blah. So Black Twitter was like, yo, I know you're trying to insult us, but Nightskins is kind of fire, so let's make our own OCs, right? So they start making their own OCs. And then from my end, it was Ebony Warrior Studios and Tony Weaver Jr., who kind of came up in my For You, and they were like, hey, they highlighted the tweet, and then they said, let's make our own OCs here on TikTok. So they started making their own OCs, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, this is kind of silly. This is kind of fun. Let me just go and make one myself, because I think it would be fun, and it give me a little chance of stretching my voice acting and whatnot. And then I saw I think 2,000 or 3,000 people watched it, and I was like, oh, okay, let me try this again. And then it got to like 5,000 or 6,000, and then it became like a series. And the series originally, I didn't write anything. I was kind of like, this would be cool. This would be cool. What if I do this thing? And then there was an episode called A Fight in the Woods, and I got 30K, and I was like, okay. there's obviously a demand for this. I already like fantasy. My favorite game series is Final Fantasy. If I'm watching anime, it's got to be fantasy or close to fantasy, aside from action. And I love fantasy movies. So I was like, all right, let me actually start writing this lore. But then, like, by the time I actually started writing it, it had been like 20 episodes in, which is why we did this kind of soft reboot into an animated series. But yeah, it started off as palm-colored people insulting us. And as usual, we take a negative and turn it into a positive. And we turned, like, there's so many of us, because I'm not the only Night Skins creator out there. I'm just the only one who's doing kind of like the whole animated series voice acting thing here on TikTok.
Yeah, when it first started happening, I jumped into and started doing some Night Skin stuff, and I remember all of that. But you took it to a whole other level with like the animation and thing like that. So I couldn't even touch it. I was just doing little voice acting videos and things like that, coming up with fun characters, and that was kind of the fun thing of Night Skins at the time, or still is, like, kind of everybody was doing something or doing, making their own kind of thing. But so Tales of Guardim, explain what. So someone goes to your page, we start watching it. Mm-hmm. Who's the main character? Give us like a little bit of a rundown of your characters.
Okay, so the original series, which again we're revamping because we're moving into an animation space, but I'll talk about the original run and then how we got to where we are now. So the original run was about a character named Yask. He's the head of what's called the Fists of Punishment, right? And he runs this garrison, but he's kind of like detached because he's got a lot of going on. So he kind of uses humor to deal with his life because he lost someone really important to him. So in any case, the series starts with him in the woods, and he's kind of just trying to take a break away from everything, and he gets attacked by the Saiyankar. And I love these enemies because of how I kind of came up with them. So the Saiyankar are one of the main enemies against the Night Skins of the series. And the way we got the name was, so there's an animal group called the Procyanidae, okay? And in that animal group, there's a certain animal, right? And it's called the thief of the woods, maybe, and they're called trash can pandas. So if you take the first three letters of that and you reverse it, you get car. And if you take cyan from Procyanidae, you get cyan car. And the Saiyankar are Night Skins who defected to hang out with the Moon Demons. And now the Moon Demons are the main baddies, and as you can tell, if the Moon Demons are the baddies and the Night Skins are the goodies, you can kind of tell what the Moon Demons are, what they represent. They represent palm color supremacy. So the Saiyankar will be kind of the quote-unquote trash pandas of that universe. So they're like, I forsake my night skin. I think power is more important than brotherhood and sisterhood. Right. So they go to that side. Another character is Namda. He is a Gigan, a giant, who's from Kilsha Village. He's from the Gigan Plains. He meets Yask when they're fighting against the Saiyankar. He's one of the Saiyankar. He tried to take the job because his village was pretty much dying, and the Saiyankar offered him help. But he's not. He's still a man of honor and respect. So when he fights Yask, he's kind of like, this guy's kind of cool. Let me join him. His second in command is Rob. Now, Rob is his lifelong friend, and he also has a subsection in the Fist of Punishment called the Hai Jiao. They're all speedsters, so they're all super fast, and they do kind of reconnaissance and rescue missions. Cool. There's the Toothless Man, he has been named, but we haven't named him in the show yet. He's kind of super silly, but he eyes on everybody. He knows what everything's going on. There's Nev, the record keeper. He's the smartest person in Rohikwa, and Rohikwa is the kingdom. And I can show you guys a map. Thanks. I can show you guys a map later of the kingdom, and that is the brother of Yasfora. And. Okay. And he's based on my brother, so he is. And I also think about inclusion. So he's gay, and also Namda is bisexual. So, and they have kind of, and Namda kind of like later on in the series, he's kind of like, "Ooh, who's your brother over there? Like, who's this guy?" And then, of course, there's the character we're talking about now in the series, which is the animated series. So we're going to jump forward now because there's more characters, but I want to stay on task of what's really being highlighted is Yorisu. Now, before everybody got their powers, there was a goddess that came down who was running away from another god who was bad, and his name is Prevel, and Prevel is actually a play on the word privilege. And Base is the god that comes to Guardim and gives Yorisu her power, because she's like, I need someone who's pure of heart, who's kind, who is here to protect other Nightskins, who can go around blessing the Nightskins in the world and giving them my power, because there's a great peril coming. And if they can't receive my power, they have to be a Nightskin to receive that power. They can receive their wisdom. So that's the other kingdom. So there's like the Sorhanu Highlands, which is basically Southeast Asia, East Asia, and the Middle East. Then there's the Makia Archipelago, which encompasses Polynesian and Native American peoples. And then there's the Asmiak Deep, and the Asmiak Deep is an amalgamation of Hispanic, Latina, and indigenous people of South America and the surrounding islands. So I try to inclusion is really big for me. So that's pretty much all the characters we're going on right now. So if you're watching the show right now, those are the characters you would know. And Yorisu actually just got casted by their voice actress, and she's in this live right now. So yeah, we're really expanding, and those are the characters right now. But there are a lot of the characters that exist. I don't want to talk about them too much because we're kind of reworking them into the space. So the lore, if you've watched it up until now, it's going to stay generally the same. But we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, going to get to those bits and pieces. The one, yep, Amina still got it, is our voice actress. The problem was, like I told you earlier, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants and just coming up with it on the go. And now it's more structured. We have script writing. I have an artist now. We're trying to hire an editor. So we're trying to make this a cohesive series. So if you watch it now, the live action stuff, you'll get an idea of the story, but certain parts are changing to kind of update and make more sense. So there's a through line.
Awesome. I love all of that. I love that the lore is so thick and heavy. And I think it's because, like, growing up, I was in the anime and still am, and I love lore-heavy things, like fantasy things. I was never, and this always surprises people when I say it, I was never a huge, like, Lord of the Rings fan, but I love kind of, I guess just magic in general, or lore-heavy kinds of things, like a good backstory. That's always like the parts that I wanna figure out. And when it comes to Black folk, especially being younger Black folk, we oftentimes get picked on or made fun of. Especially like nerd culture in general gets picked on quite a bit. Black nerd culture really gets picked on because not only are you a nerd, but you also doing white people shit. So I love to see that we're really embracing embracing high fantasy. Mm-hmm. So when you first started making this, or what is your, I guess, experience with that? Like this idea that this isn't for Black people. Like if someone were to say that, I mean, moon demons are going to moon demon, right? So we know that those things get said to us. But sometimes it even comes from our own people, like this isn't for us. We're not supposed to be doing this, or, let's put that away. What do you say to folks like that?
Like I get what you're saying, because like I experienced that growing up, and that also contributes, I feel like, to internalize anti-Blackness. That's something I had to combat and deal with and overcome. Even I still have hints of it that haunt me today, because you want to be seen as one of your own community. You want to be seen as someone who's accepted, but dude, I got a Full Metal Alchemist tattoo on the back of my hand. You know what I mean? I'm a huge weeb. I love fantasy. Final Fantasy is probably my favorite video game series on the face of the planet. So when it comes to experiencing that, I've experienced it firsthand. But when it comes to people who are experiencing it now and feeling like they don't belong, dude, there's tons of us. We're everywhere. And one thing I really love is there's a group on Facebook. I plug them all the time because it is one of the best safe spaces on Facebook for Blerds. It's called the Urban Anime Lounge. And I'll say it again, the Urban Anime Lounge. So if you're a weeb, if you're into fantasy and nerd stuff and you want to be seen as equal but by your own people, I swear that's one of the best places I've ever been to. I think Tony Weaver's in that group too. So we all kind of just hang out and we talk nerd stuff, and just know that you never feel like you're not black enough for liking fantasy. I mean, look, the black man is the one who invented the video game cartridge. Truthfully, when they tried to kick Uhura off of Star Trek, they were all about to walk out. We exist in this space. We belong here. Who was it? Cyberpunk 2077 was written by a black man. So we exist in fantasy. We're supposed to be here. It's not just for palm-colored people. It's not just for Asian people. It's for everybody, and everybody can enjoy it. You're supposed to be there. It's for you too.
Awesome. Yes. I cannot agree more. I love that so much. You know, just to diverge a little bit, one series I wanted to be good. Did you ever watch? It was that Netflix original, Bright. That movie with Will Smith. Did you watch that? Oh my god! I wanted that to be good so bad. I wanted that to be good so bad. I wanted it because I was like, whoa, there's a black lead in a high fantasy show that takes place in reality. That's like everything that I'm about. Like every time I had to like playing Fable. I don't know if you ever played that game. It was an Xbox game. There was like 3 of them. I played Fable. I was always the mage. I'm like, this is what I wanted to do. Like, I'm like, yes, we're going to have full magic and stuff like that. And it's going to be a black dude, and he's in Compton. Yes. It's like checking all the boxes. Then I watched the movie, and I'm like, man, the studio fumbled this movie. We are not going to get another one. I just wanted this movie to be good so bad. But that's just something that kind of popped into my head. But thinking of magics and things like that, I think what people oftentimes, especially like if there's magic involved or like mythical characters, cryptids or something like that involved, I think when we talk about high fantasy, there is this almost necessary like stereotype that it's this bastardization or this reimagining of medieval Europe. Mm-hmm. Like every single time we have some sort of like high fantasy, they all have British accents for some reason. I don't know why everybody who has dragons also has a British accent. Not really sure, but like for some reason that seems to be the case. But reading African folklore, there's actually a great show on Netflix right now that's a modern reimagining of African folklore stories, directed by I think it's six different directors that shot these little shorts. They're like 15 to 20 minutes long, something like that. And it's an amazing show if you don't know like African folklore, African stories, because we also have all these magical stories. We also, like Greece isn't the only one with a pantheon. And if you talk to Greek people, they love talking about the North African gods because they crossed over a lot of times too in their stories. It's only until we get to the West where we start to really start separating like these kind of white gods from black gods. But in ancient Greece, they didn't do that because the concept of race was different. That's a whole different conversation. But I think a lot of times we often think of high fantasy in this reimagining of European history.
Yeah.
So when creating your world, I get the sense that you draw a lot from African folklore. So how did you do your studies? Was it something that you grew up with, or were you studying those things to kind of pull that magic in, or where did that come from?
A lot of the stuff I've done is kind of an amalgamation of different things around the world, but I do inject certain things from African or from the black diaspora. So, for instance, like there's a nation called Vood, right? And it's my version of what could be considered like a Hogwarts University, except minus the turfiness. But the name Vood comes on mixed from voodoo and hoodoo. So that's where they're going to learn their magic, and they're alchemists, but it's done with like an African twist. There's there's a kingdom called Hasori, right? But that's a rearranging of the Oshira pantheon. And then actually there's one character that's left of that kingdom fell due to the moon demons attacking, and his name is Shang, and it's short for Shango, the god of the African god of thunder, who makes Thor look like a paperweight. So I do try to fold in, especially on the main continent, because that's where all of the Nightskins reside. I tried to fold in different ways of showing the diaspora. Now, I will say there's not a lot of specific African folklore in all the kingdoms, but I do try to show the diaspora. So, for instance, it's not going to just be British accents. So, for instance, there's a kingdom called Stashao. They're basically West Indies. There's going to be the Jekyll kingdom. They're bards and singers, but they're going to be like Brooklyn accents. You know what I mean? It's going to show. Yeah. So I don't want it to be like my character. Obviously, the main character has kind of like a weird British accent, like medieval thing. But as we sprawl out into the diaspora, it's going to show different accents. I actually want my voice actors to know this. I don't want you to do a British accent. There's going to be characters with British accents, but that's the great thing about fantasy. We can just make up whatever we want and then have it be ours. We're not closed off to this. We have to do it this way, or we have to do it that way. And I will also want to make something very important, because when people say, "Oh, you're British," so you're catering to a more Eurocentric view. And that's the same thing I had a problem with Yoshi P with when he talked about Final Fantasy 16. And I'm going on a tangent, but this is important. We were there in medieval Europe. We were there. It's okay to include us into fantasy and medieval Europe because the Moors and other people, we were there. Black people were there in medieval Europe. So when people say we can't be there, yes, we can. And even if we weren't there, guess what? We are now. Okay? And we're going to put our own black spin on it. And we're also going to be including BBVE in there, so Black British Vernacular English, and we're also going to add in AAVE, and we're going to try to flip a way to make the AAVE fit the world. So I do want a lot of Black, not just African, but Black influences and even Black American influences, because this is also for the Black American people as well. You know what I mean? Just because it's got a British accent or a Caribbean accent, I still want our history and our lore folded into this fantastic fantasy world that I've created.
So, is there going to be like kind of a one-to-one analogy or anything for American slavery or anything like that, as far as, I guess, bringing Black Americans into the fold or anything like that, like it, or I guess particularly. How do I say this? Like Black American struggle, or the flip side that I've heard with writing a lot of fantasy from the point of view of Black people is our entire history is not just struggle. So in order to exemplify us or show us, it doesn't always have to be like, oh, well, this person was a former indentured servant, and then they broke away from their master, and blah, 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 and tell this whole story. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's an allegory for slavery. It's very clever. It could just be this person is who they are. So have you thought about that? Have you gone in either direction, or like kind of made a decision about like struggle versus non-struggle when writing?
Yes, I have thought about that thoroughly. I am tired of seeing media where we have to be overcoming slavery, or it's like some kind of traumatic experience. When I was creating this show, I said, I don't want that. What I do want to highlight is struggle in terms of things we need to overcome. But slavery was one thing I explicitly said, never in my content, because we have enough. They just came out with Emancipation. I'm sure it's a great movie. I love Will Smith, more power. I'm tired of that. So in my world, the Nightskins have never been slaves. The Nightskins were actually the Nightskins in my world are pretty much the majority, right? So they occupy the main continent, and so the allegorical thing I've put out there is the moon demons, right? at one point were okay with the Night Skins, and they got this power from the Resurlock Stone, and Resurlock is a play on the word colonizer. So they got the Resurlock Stone, and then some of the Moonskins became Moon Demons, and then they wanted to take over the world, said it was theirs. So how can they reclaim something, saying it was theirs? They're taking it back that was never theirs in the first place. So it's kind of a play on colonization, but they're not enslaving. So there's not going to be a part where there's enslaving. There's going to be Nightskins who defect and become Scion-Kar, who are, people who uphold palm-colored supremacy. So, for instance, the leader, the founder of the Scion-Kar is Hoenn Makav. And Hoenn Makav is Candace Owens and Herschel Walker mixed together. So the H from Herschel Walker and then Owens. Hoenn. And the Makav is, Makav, I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's Hebrew for West, as in Kanye West. So then we got Hoenn Makav. So I do those little plays on things, but one thing I will never ever do in this year, because I want people to, when they're enjoying this content, I do want them to see the struggle and the trials and tribulations that they have to overcome, but I never want it to be like, this person owned this person. I want them to watch and be like, yo, that could be me. But instead of saying, oh, man, that could be me, but after this part, because I don't want to do this part. I want you to open up my stories or watch my stories and be like, I want to be that. I want to be that, and I don't have to go through a trial and a struggle with this character to feel like I want to be that. I can start watching this video and instantly be like, I could be a superhero. You know what I mean? And a big thing about it is I make it for my son, right? And I want my son to be able to enjoy this content and not feel like, well, but Dad, why was Yask in shackles? Yask ain't never been in shackles. Yask's he's the strongest fist among all the Nightskins. Ain't nobody trying to put him in shackles. So, long story short, there will be trials and tribulations that are allegorical to the real world, but one of them will not be Jim Crow. Another one will not be slavery, because there are a lot of content creators who do highlight these types of things, and more power to them. But I wanted to make a high fantasy where we're not the secondary characters, or we're not the enslaved characters. We are the characters. So that's why I also reach out to a lot of content creators who are uplifting and stuff like that, to do voices for these things. Because I want people to know that that's the message. The message is putting black people, black and BIPOC people in general, on a pedestal, instead of us being secondary characters or characters that were going through some kind of trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, man. And you said that you just said something really interesting to me, that you were creating this for your son, or in part at least have created this for your son. So as far as the ideas of the Nightskins and Guardim, is it kind of focused for kids, or is it for Quadrant? How would you envision it?
So, as a lot of people know, my TikTok started out as more adult focused, but as time has gone on and I've started creating this content and I shifted over to Nightskin content, I really wanted it to be something like I would say, I'm trying to think of a good anime reference, like Blue Lock, I guess would be a good anime reference. Everybody can watch Blue Lock, right? But of course, there are more references for adults, but kids can watch it too and not feel like or you watch it with your kid and not feel like, oh man, I don't want my kid to see this. This is bad. So I am making it for all of us. It is definitely an all-encompassing. I would say it's more of a PG, straddling PG-13, because we do say hell and damn, but there will be no flagrant cursing, no just wanton violence in the show. I don't want that, because I do want it to, my end goal for this is to, I can't remember the name of the studio, but there's an anime studio in Japan that is headed up by a black man. And I want this to eventually become a manga, and then that manga to become an anime, so that it can be watched by the black diaspora and be like, yo, that's us, hiring black voice actors to do that. So I do want it to be like a fantasy show that's going to have cool action scenes, kind of like I guess the best comparison would be if it was like a Black Power Ranger show, you know what I mean? Because there's kicking and karate and all that stuff going on, but there's not just buckets of blood and decapitations and all that stuff. So I definitely want it to be something that you can sit down with your kid. Of course, now, even though my son is 6, so I would say I've kind of softened it for him, but as we go on, it's going to get a little more It's going to be more mature themes, but I would say like a young adult kind of vibe. But at the same time, I still want it to be something. If you're sitting with your kid, I feel like you can watch it with them as long as you're with them, and they if they have any questions, you can answer it. It's not something I would say watch with like a 6-year-old by themselves, but I feel like if I were to show this to my 6-year-old son and we were sitting together and I said, hell and damn, he would understand the difference of what to say, what not to say, and still be able to consume it and really enjoy it and be like, that's me up there. So, yeah, I really want to show young black boys, girls, and all the theys and thems in between. And that's why you also notice that I make sure to include the BIPOC community as well. Even though they're in smaller roles, I try to make sure that they're important to the series. So while, for instance, the Sorhanu Highlands is, you know what, let me just go grab this map so I can show you.
Go grab the map. Because as soon as you get back, I got a couple of other questions just brewing in my mind. But if anybody has any questions or anything like that, throw them down in the comment section. Please let us know what you're thinking about, what you like about this idea, any ideas that you have or something that you would like to see in here. So you're back. You got the map?
Yes. So this right here is the Sorhanu Highlands right here. So it's 3 floating isles that have magical beasts that fly, that help them to transport themselves across the kingdom. And only the people from the Sorhanu Highlands can command these animals, these beasts. But for instance, the Sorhanu Highlands have the Sunskins, the Dawnskins, and the Duskskins, which are Southeast Asia, Middle East, and East Asia. And so they are the greatest weapon masters and swordsmen, martial artists in the kingdom. They're the greatest cooks are here, and the greatest fabric makers are all here. So, and their fabrics are infused with magic, so they're the best ones to make it. So if you want the best fabrics in their kingdom, you can't go to, say, one of the Night Skin kingdoms. You got to come here because they got the wisdom of Yorisu, while they got the power of Yorisu. Down here is Heleta and Nagi. So Nagi's based on, I believe, the Navajo tribe, and Heleta is based on, I think, Tongan. And they're the best weaponsmiths and armor smiths in the entire kingdom. If you want a good sword, I mean, you can make one in your kingdom and get one and it'll be fine. But if you want the best sword in the kingdom, you want to go down to the Polynesian/Native American place right down here. And then the Asmiak Deep, they have a very important role, which I haven't disclosed yet. But their role is so pivotal to the series that if they don't exist and they aren't there, bad things happen for the entirety of the world. Now, they aren't the main characters. Obviously, it's going to be the Nightskins, but there's even Moonskins. I even made a space for a little tiny space for the Moonskins, right? So the Moonskins have a little space up here called Moon's Exile, and they are either Moonskins who never became Moon Demons, or Moon Demons who defected and want to align themselves with the Nightskins. And the way that they work is they work in service of the Nightskins. Not saying that in servitude, but they're like, hey, I know what our brothers and sisters did, and we are sorry. How can we be of help to you to serve and protect other Nightskins and the other skins across the world? So they all inhabit along the Ebon-R border, which is a border between New Ebonus, because this continent used to be called Ebonus, and then it got called Aurang Great, and then they called it New Ebonus, as in saying this is ours. This was ours before, and now it's ours again. So there's a border between the two of them called Ebon-R, which is where the Sign-Car live. But the point is, everybody's got a place and a space in this world, and I wanted to really make sure of that. Yeah, that's really important to me. Is like, even though it's primarily for Black people, I also want to give other people of color their shine. Yeah. It was really important to me.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of the latest Black Panther movie that really tried to do like indigenous peoples, like having a huge part in introducing them into the greater Marvel universe. Like, hey, they're here now because we put them in a movie. Here they are. In fact, and we've been talking about a few different things, and but let's take a step back for a second and just define just a few things. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but we've been saying blerd culture. So what's a blerd? What's a manga? And what's the difference between a manga and an anime? Because I think some people don't really know. That sounds like it's the same thing, but maybe it isn't. So what are those things?
So Blerd obviously is a black nerd. So it's us who love living in our melanated greatness, but are geeky as all hell. So a Blerd is a black nerd, and if you enjoy Star Trek or Star Wars to the fullest, if you're an anime geek, manga, and we'll talk about that in a second. If you're a gamer like me, we play Apex Legends every night. If y'all want my gamer tag, holler, because we're actually gonna have a Guardim tournament once we hit 20K. Guardim tournament. It's gonna be called the Guardim War Games. It's gonna be a blast. We're gonna use a private server, and everybody's gonna represent a different kingdom, and whoever wins the kingdom gets a map and gets all the swag and prizes and everything, and it's free to enter. So manga, I got a couple over here. I've been reading this one called Sakamoto Days. It's fantastic. Everybody should read it. It's hilarious. So a manga is essentially the Japanese form of a comic. So this is the manga I'm reading, which is Sakamoto Days. Everything's going to fall over here, and that's okay. Hold on. Don't fall, please. Okay. So it's basically a comic book, but a Japanese comic book. And they tend to, the way that they work is a lot of them get published in magazines like Shonen Jump and stuff like that. And when you want to get the book, they have to wait for multiple weeks to come out, and then they compile it into one large book. Like this is volume 1, which has multiple chapters, which would be different comic books. And the little difference between American comic books and manga is 9 times out of 10, unless it's like a high-budget manga, it's going to be in black and white. It saves time because they have to come out weekly, and it's usually just one artist writing, and one artist. It's one person. So in America, it's what we have an artist, they'll have like a background artist, they'll have a writer, and they'll have an anchor. They have like 4 people working on one comic. Whereas in Japan, it's typically one person writing it and doing the art and then publishing it every week, which is why. And when mangakas, which is a person who writes and does art for mangas, they tend to get burnt out a lot. A lot of them get sick. A lot of them have health issues because they get pushed every week to put out the stuff. Especially people like, for instance, Hunter x Hunter. He got sick. Several others. It's a tough industry. Now, same thing with anime. So anime is essentially when a manga gets super duper popular, like this one is getting. I have a feeling it's going to happen. They turn it into a cartoon, and anime is just the Japanese way of saying cartoon. That's just it. But in the world stage, when you get to like the Western world, anime specifically means anything that is either a product of Japan or is inspired by the Japanese aesthetic. So, for instance, there's a one called The God of High School. That's actually a manhwa, and a manhwa is a Korean manga. So even though it's technically an anime and technically a manga, it is from Korea, but it's animated by a Japanese studio. So, long story short, mangas are Japanese comics, and animes are the Japanese cartoons based on the Japanese comics.
Awesome. That's great. I thank you for that amazing explanation. I didn't know about the Korean Korean name for that. I also didn't know that mangas are drawn and written by typically one person. That's amazing to me. And we talked about this like a little bit because this is how the Night Skin thing kind of got started. But let's dive a little bit into representation, because how the Night Skin thing got started was because people were celebrating representation, and then somebody got mad about it. And I believe it was Funimation had announced that they had hired a bunch of Black American voice actors to do voices and things like that. And the irony to me is that, like, man, y'all hate black people so much you don't even want to hear their voice. Like, y'all could have been listening to black people this whole time and you would have never known. Like, Piccolo is black. Like, he black. Like, no, is it Hawk? There's a couple black voice actors in My Hero Academia that do voice non-black characters, and it's happening more and more now because it's becoming normalized that, hey, just like palm colored voice actors, we can do a wide range of characters, and a lot of them you don't even realize are people of color, because like they'll even flip over Asian voice actors, American Asian voice actors. Like, for instance, Johnny Bosch, he was Adam in Power Rangers Zeo. He was the second Black Ranger. He's also the voice of Vash the Stampede. He also does a voice on an anime called Wolf's Rain. He's literally one of my favorite voice actors. And you're right, yes, Phil Lamar is the GOAT. Phil Lamar's the GOAT. Yeah, exactly.
Samurai Jack. If you enjoyed Samurai Jack, guess what? You enjoyed Phil Lamar. He's my mutual. Oh my God, he's my mutual. But yeah,
really?
He added me on TikTok. I almost lost my mind. I had a meltdown. And every time I message him, he'll be like, heart react. I'm like, that's enough. That's all I need. You don't have to say anything. You just heart reacted it. I'm okay with that. But yeah, like people have been listening to us in anime, in their favorite American cartoons as well, and not even knowing it. And then the minute they find out, they're like, oh, what? Wilt from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was voiced by a black guy? What? Yeah. It's Phil Lamar. Vamp.
Right, yeah.
Vamp from Metal Gear Solid 2, very popular character. I loved him in that series. We're right back again. Phil Lamar. That man's everywhere. So they can be mad. It's okay.
So when it comes to that stuff, there's almost kind of two schools of thought. Like, but I think anime kind of encompasses it. I think the best, because there's this idea that we shouldn't have black characters just for the sake of having black characters, or insert ourselves all the time because of no reason. I was actually just talking to a good mutual writer of mine, Michael LeBourne. Michael. And he was saying, I want black characters in shows and things, but I also want them to be unremarkable. Like, yes. I don't want their race to be part of the show. I want them to just exist in the world like black people do right now. And when it comes to representation, especially with anime and things like that, I feel like that's almost easier, because whatever the artist draws is whatever they look like. The actor is literally just a voice. It's just somebody behind a microphone at some point recorded something, and they put it to a green thing, a purple thing, a pink monster. It doesn't matter what it is, because like it all of that doesn't matter. So do you think animation lends itself a little bit more to getting us to that point of representation? Or do you want the characters to be drawn as black characters?
I kind of agree with Michael. I do like the fact that I love it when I see, it's the same thing with queer characters. I love it when I see a queer character folded into a show, and it's the most unremarkable thing. And I think a great example of that for me is, and I talk about this game all the time to my fan base. Apex Legends does this so incredibly well. So there are non-binary characters, there's gay characters, they just introduced a trans character, there's a queer questioning character, but the way that they execute it is it's said in passing. It's said in a way that it's just a natural flowing of the conversation. Like, there was a love triangle between three of the girls on the game, but it folded right into the lore. No one batted an eye, no one blinked, because it just seemed, it was very organic. There's a black character in Attack on Titan, who he starts out on one side and he defects to the other side. But it's not like he's like, hey, like we put this black character in, please look at him. He's a cool character who happens to be black. And that's the best feeling, when you get to see a cool character who happens to be black. And they didn't just like relegate him to some like offshore role or something for like 5 minutes. He's a pivotal character. He's not a main character. He's a side character. But he's an important character, but they're not like saying black, 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 black. Because don't get me wrong, I want more representation. But obviously, these larger corporations tend to do it wrong. They're just like when they put a black woman in a movie, they become the sassy black friend who no one seems to really want, or they're the girlfriend, I'm looking at you, Invincible, who becomes like kind of disposable and is loud and is angry and has like an attitude that doesn't make sense for the given situation. So I want more representation, but I want it the same way that, because I'm also queer, I don't want to be seen as queer and I have to have a pride parade. I love pride parades, by the way, but we should get to a point where we don't have to relegate things. Same thing with the Black History Month. I love Black History Month. I want Black history to be American history, and it should be studied every day, and it should be something that is normalized. And just like black characters on TV and in cartoons, it should be normalized. And yes, I do. And this is somebody in the chat. What about black voice actors that voice non-black characters? I think that's great representation too, because we've been dealing with palm-colored actors representing us in different fields. Hank Azaria, for example. Hank Azaria did a ton of voices on The Simpsons. One of them being Apu Nahasapi Petlan, right? And he was, and the reason I love him for this is like he understood the times were changing, and he was like, you know what? We should give up this role to someone of color. But then we also have people like, again, Phil Lamar, and as someone said, James Avery. People don't realize that James Avery was also the voice of Shredder, right? So we can have people of different races and different colors representing these, because it's different when you're doing anime. It's one thing if you're doing a live action movie, and you need to, the character supposed, like if an Avatar: The Last Airbender, M. Night. So if we're gonna do a movie like that, right, you got to have Asian characters in the lead. The whole show is based off of Asian characters, right? But if you're having them, if you have a black voice actor or a Polynesian voice actor, another great example, the voice actor for Gibby, who is Pacific Islander and I keep using Apex Legends because it's just a really great example, who is a Polynesian character in Apex Legends. He is voiced by a Native American person behind the scenes. So it's really, I really think that if you have the talent and you're a person of color and there's a role open for a white character, but you can do the voice, let them, because we have a ton of white voice actors, and I don't want to I'm not saying you should take roles away from them. If they have their role, let them keep it. But if there's new stuff that's opening up and there's a voice actor that can kill that role, give it to them. And it shouldn't come down to, but you're black. No. But it's not that it's slowly not becoming that way anymore, because there's more and more black voice actors and Asian voice actors voicing anime. And then one big thing about that, which kind of turns my head, why do palm-colored people get so upset when most of these characters are Asian? Most of them are Asian. Most of them are Asian. Except for like maybe Full Metal Alchemist and like Attack on Titan, most of them are Asian. I don't know many white people named Josuke, okay?
Don't tell them. Don't tell them that they specifically draw anime so that it fits Western audiences' ideas of what people look like. Don't tell them that Japan has been pulling the wool over your eyes the whole time. Do you think Goku's supposed to look like that? Like Japanese? Thank you for saying that. I love that. And speaking of big companies, because this does happen, we have the biggest, wokest company that Florida has ever seen that keeps putting out movies and keeps letting us know that, hey, there's going to be a gay character in here. Just you wait and see. And the most recent one that I can think of that I cared about, that I noticed, was in what was it called? Strange Worlds. Yeah. Strange World. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar, if you saw that film.
Disney Plus.
But they made a bigger deal about saying that, we're going to have this. Actually, I don't even know if they did make like an announcement, or if I think it was just the news picked it up. It was critics that started talking about it. But it was this character was, I think the character's, but I can't even remember. But that's almost the point, right? The character's sexuality was unremarkable. Mm-hmm. I remember there was a love interest, and like that was kind of a motivating factor, but who it wasn't the point. Yeah. And I think that is kind of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's kind of what you're leaning towards, like the characters being bi or something like that, and wanting to either date he was a teenager, so date a boy or date a girl, right? Is irrelevant that they're a boy or a girl. Yeah. It's just teenager needs to get from point A to point B. It's a travel movie, like it's a road trip movie. Yeah. That's what the movie's about. And then hilarity ensues because monsters and whatever. It doesn't matter who's at the end of that part. So, but okay, so there's that representation, which feels nice, feels good. We're looking at that and we're like, that. Thank you, that's great. Also, the character is black, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the story. There's a bunch of other things. Something else I want to plug in a second. That's an amazing story. But then there's representation that I am not. When I first saw them remaking this, I was excited, and now that we're getting closer to the movie being released and I'm seeing more of the marketing materials, it's making me feel kind of weird. And that's The Little Mermaid. When I first saw Ariel and saw all those reactions, I mean, my kids even had that reaction.
Yeah, same.
Of hearing the song, knowing the story, and they're like, oh, here comes the mermaid. And then it was like, whoa, she's black.
Yeah.
What's going on? And that was really cool. Then we got all the backlash, because of course we did. And then it died down because their attention span is very, very short. They get real mad, and then something else happens, and they're real mad about that. Like, I think we're mad at Bud Light or something right now. But now I'm starting to see. I just saw like the newest theater poster because we're getting closer to when the movie's coming out. I just saw the closest theater, the recent theater poster. And I guess I don't know how to feel about it. It feels obvious that they're highlighting The Little Mermaid in The Little Mermaid, but it almost feels a little it feels a little bit like they're kind of taking advantage of the hype in throwing her on everything. Like, it's a strange feeling. Like, when you look at something and you're like, are they pandering, or is this supposed to be this way? Because at first it didn't feel like y'all were, but now it really feels like y'all are like, see, The Little Mermaid's black. Do you remember that? Because I don't know what any of the other characters look like at all. And I get that it's The Little Mermaid. You see what I mean? Like, I'm coming from it from like two minds. Like, I get why all the marketing would surround The Little Mermaid, but it almost feels exploitative that it's only surrounded. Like, I have literally no clue what any of the other characters look like, and it's kind of bonkers. And so when it comes to things like that, and feeling like like race is playing too much of a factor, or it's kind of pandering, or it's exploitative and things like that. Even in your own work, you said that you focus on BIPOC a lot. How do you toe the line between representation and exploitation?
So I think it just depends on who's also putting the media out and your specific your goals. So like, I think that Disney first. Let's talk on the Disney part. So I think Disney's of two camps. There is the Strange World camp, and then there's the Little Mermaid camp. So and what I mean by that is, like, Little Mermaid. Let's all collectively agree it's a cash grab, right? They're just trying to make money off of a brand that already exists, and they're redoing it. And realistically, don't get me wrong, I was very ecstatic. Like, I remember watching the trailer and my mind was blown. But then we got to remember, they also did Lion King. They also did Beauty and the Beast. They keep doing these live action remakes, and the main goal isn't about representation. It's about money. I mean, look, the only one we actually had a full black cast damn near for was the one with animals, which was the Lion King. And I get what you're saying about The Little Mermaid, because it feels like now it went from just like this super exciting time to being very ham-fisted and not in your face, but it feels very disingenuous. It feels like there's just kind of like this fakeness to it, and that is not no indictment of the actress of Halle Bailey and all the people who are involved with the project. That is not an indictment of them. I think they're going in with a genuine passion for the project, and they love what they do. But they're also doing it under the Disney umbrella. I think the difference between me doing it and, say, Disney doing it is because I guarantee you the producers and everybody who are doing it don't look like me, right? And I'm doing it from a place of experience and of living in a world where there's not enough of stuff for people like us, where we're just kind of normal Joe Blows in a fantasy world, having a good time, but also being main characters. We also have to be the magical black character, Caddy, like it's Bagger Vance, like the throwaway character, and even Baps, which is a movie I really enjoyed. It had 2 black leads, but it was still like they were just kind of. Hey. Fun fact: my aunt was on that soundtrack. My aunt is Robin S. Weird fact. But yeah. So when I'm writing these stories, and also when I'm writing my stories, right, I'm not writing it and like, okay, now what would a black guy from Compton do? What would a black guy from Nigeria do? What would a black guy from Sudan do? I'm doing like, so this character's name is Yask, and he's the head of the Fist of Punishment, and he does all this cool stuff. He's also black. That's a thing that he also is. And this world is dominated by mostly night skins, but they're not defined by being night skins. They're defined by being a Jacalian. They're defined by being from Stashao or from Kavut. They might be an elf or a bard or a thief. You know, that's what these characters are, and it just so happens that they're black and have these magical cool powers. So the reason I feel like it's not pandering and it's not me trying to be like, hey, black is because even when you watch my stuff, I'm never like, these black night skins who are very black are going across the world more black for the blackness. I'm like, Yask 4, strongest fist among all the night skins, is here to tell you a story about Yorisu. And like when I talk about Yorisu, I'm talking about her as a person who is moving through the world, who is trying to bless other night skins and give the other skins the wisdom to make great armor, or great fabrics, or great foods, or to have amazing martial arts, or to be the type of people who align themselves with other skins to help heal the world. But it's never like, yeah, remember the main characters are black. Remember that. And I feel like that's what they're doing with Disney. They're like, hey, Ariel, she's black. Remember that. Remember the part where she's black. Hey, look at her hair. We made it extra black. Even though we probably got the same wig person that Tyler Perry uses. She's black though. Get it? She's black. So I really like. I've said this a bunch of times when it comes to. I'm big on representation. I'm also big on inclusion. I'm big on centering BIPOC people, but I'm big on centering them as people. Like, I'm big on centering BIPOC people as normalized people. So centering them and showing them in a way that you're not like, oh, hey, they're really black. But it's more like, oh, wow, that guy looks like me, but he's doing a normal thing like I would do. Or I can be that magical character, but it doesn't center around the fact that I have to be this way. So that's why I feel like it's different, because I'm doing it in celebration of fantasy and us being in fantasy normally. I know that sounds weird, but I want to normalize black people in fantasy. I want to normalize BIPOC in fantasy so that when you read it, you're not like, oh, why is this black character in here? You go, oh, Josh seems like a pretty cool dude. That seems like a dude I would hang out with. And then that's the end of the conversation. But then, like, after you're done reading, like, oh, yeah, the character's black. It shouldn't be. It should be something that's inconsequential versus it being the only thing you see, right? So I mean, and I feel like the reason I say that is, how many fantasy shows have you watched where the characters, or sci-fi shows have you watched where the characters are all white, but you never sat there and be like, look at that white character right there. That's a white character. No, you just look at it and you're just like, hey, I really love Orville, or I really like Star Trek: The Next Generation, you know, or I really like Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I don't sit there and go, I can't identify with these palm-colored characters because they're palm-colored. I love Han Solo. I jive with Han Solo. I see a lot of my goofiness in Han Solo, and but back then, you know, it was harder for us to get it. You know, all we got was Lando. You know, so we can do the flip, and people can, like, best example, Black Panther. When people watch Black Panther, yes, it has a very strong African theme, but people still walked away with it going, yo, T'Challa's dope. They didn't go, of course it's going to be that subsect, and it's going to. I've already experienced it with my content. They're like, oh, I guess all the palm-colored people are bad, and the black people here. I was like, no, that's not, and that's obviously you're not watching my content, because there are bad black people in my show. Like and that happens in real life. So, and that's another reason why I think it's not just me saying that black people are the coolest. Look at us, we're the main characters. Because I do make sure that it's not a, not to hit the nail on the nose or anything, but hit the nail on the head or anything, but it's not just a black and white issue. There's shades of gray throughout my series. So the thing is, I wanted to highlight black people as, again, normalized in every aspect. So as good guys, as bad guys, as, people who don't even want to be dealing with it. They're taking a step aside. Intelligent, dumb. They're all over the spectrum. They just so happen to be black. But because I'm black and I want to see more of that, I make my series centered around people of color, BIPOC people. But at the same time, while I'm writing it, I'm still writing it from a mind frame of a mindset of, I still want it to be consumed by everybody, and I still want people to feel like they can identify with these characters. And then at the same time, still folding in those little nods, nudges, and winks in between that only us can really identify and understand. And it's that little extra for us. So it's a story that's written for everybody, but then I do sprinkle in those little extras for us so that we feel like, okay, this is for everybody, but this is for us. Kind of like Krillin's for everybody. I'm not Krillin, I'm sorry, Piccolo. Piccolo's for everybody, but Piccolo's for us. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What you said, honestly, it made me think of, I feel like I say this quote all the time or talk about this story all the time. I was watching, you could look it up on YouTube or whatever. It's this interview with Denzel Washington, and he's talking about fences. He's talking about fences. And they were asking him kind of the same sort of question, why did you have to have a black director for Fences when you were doing the movie? And he basically said, like, it wasn't that the director had to be black. It was that the content required a black director. Like, I wasn't just choosing a black person because I wanted a black person in that seat. The story needed a black person in that seat. And then he goes on to tell this, the story when he's talking about Martin Scorsese and Spielberg. So he's like, Scorsese did Godfather and Spielberg did Schindler's List. And they're both amazing directors. And Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, and Spielberg could have done a good job with The Godfather because they're both amazing directors. Mm-hmm. But there's cultural context that them as directors could add to it. Like, there's certain things from the culture that if you don't know, you can't direct that because you needed to be there. The girls who get it. Yes. Like, you needed to be part of it. And that's something that I kind of always come back to when it comes to like this conversation about like representation and things like that. Something that in my comment section that I want to kind of just get out and just address the way that we're talking right now about representation is a very meta analysis of what representation is. That's how we're talking about it, and that's why. So, yes, this person is right. They said, to be fair, that's how they promoted the animated film too. You're correct. That is how they promoted the animated film. But we need to be honest about the fact that, like, it is different, that this is one, live action, and two, they changed the way that the character looks. And that is a change that needs to be addressed. Why did they change the way that the character looks? Is there a reason behind that? And that's why black people are kind of raising an eyebrow and going, what are you playing at? Because this is a cash grab. Like, absolutely. Just the same way as The Lion King was a cash grab. Like, I know they always employ singers. They always employ, like, the singers of the time, the comedians of the time. They always employ, like, those folks. But there's a particular reason why Nala was Beyonce. Like, they knew what they were doing.
The black dollar goes way farther than most other dollars. I think it was like, 2.5 more. I can't remember the exact number, but the black dollar does go farther. So if you inject a great example, early 90s TV shows, right? A lot of them are black. And the reason that they would put those shows out is when these studios were losing money, they would be like, all right, let's get a think tank, let's get a black show on here, because they understood that black viewers would tune in more and spend more when watching their shows. Then when they would recoup their money, or they would be, instead of in the red or in the black, they would cancel. That's what happened with UPN. That's what happened with a bulk of the shows on the WB. That's what happened with Living Single. The black dollar, when black media comes out and it's made by non-black people, there is an ulterior motive in releasing this content, or putting a black in the lead, and it's not a black director or a black producer. So, and I'm not saying that everybody's like that, because I believe that the creators and writers for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think they were Jewish. So it's not always like they saw the worth of the show, and they've had a lot of care for the show. So that's why the show went for so long, and they didn't disrespect it. But then you got to the flip side, where you got like the Jamie Foxx show, the Wayans Brothers show, or again, like I said, Living Single, where they got destroyed, not because the shows were getting bad ratings or they were doing terrible. It's because they got the money they needed out of black people, and then they were like, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So that's why that kind of thinking makes sense when it comes to Little Mermaid, because even though we're not saying it's explicitly that way, if we look at the cast and producers, the producers and the people who are behind the scenes pulling the strings for the movie, I can almost assure you, I'm not going to be 100% because I haven't checked it all out. And I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's not a black team who's doing it, because you can see the difference between that and something like, again, Black Panther. And even though obviously it's going to be a black character because it's Black Panther, but the level of care they took when creating it, they made sure to get a black director and black stunt workers to come in, and they were like, okay, and they sourced they sourced black nations to kind of get their influences in the movie to make sure it felt authentic. It felt like it wasn't a cash grab. It felt like it came from the soul, from the heart. This is a story that needs to be told, and it's about black people, but it's authentic, it's authentic. But Little Mermaid doesn't. It kind of gives the air. And again, I'm gonna reserve judgment, because I still want to. I'm as long as they're not problematic, I'm for everybody black, right? So like, I'm still gonna go see the movie and make sure to give her flowers. But I'm kind of apprehensive about it, because, as you were saying, it feels like they're just kind of on borderline tokenizing her for the movie to be successful. Like, hey, we got that black girl. Now all you black people come give me your money. And to circle back to something else, the movie you were talking about, Strange World, right? And this really solidifies the fact that Disney is not doing this because they care about specific communities. It's more about they're trying to make money as best they can while not ruffling too many feathers. And the way I say this is, they did not push Strange World. They did not push that movie. They buried it because they knew the movie was good, but if they pushed it a little too much, they were going to lose a lot of their conservative audience with openly queer characters. And then even now, like they're pushing back on Ron DeSantis by having like a kind of like a gay pride thing going on in Disney to kind of exemplify gay excellence and stuff like that. But they're doing it to push back on Ron DeSantis for clamping down on them for doing the things, for basically being in their own city and not having to pay certain taxes and stuff like that.
It's also a blackout date for their season pass holders as well. Like, if you have a season pass, you can't go, because most of those season pass holders are conservatives from Florida. So they don't want y'all in there that day. Even people outside of the state that have a yearly passes or you're part of the cast or whatever, you have cast passes, can't use them that day, because they're really not trying the ruffles. It is such a cash grab thing.
It's with progressiveness. It's a cash grab or a stick it to the man type of deal under the guise of being progressive. So yeah, exactly.
So before I let you go, let's do something fun, because we've gone up and down. I was really excited to do to have you on because I wanted a lighter, fun episode that Black people isn't just all struggle and stuff like that. But let's do this. Before we do like the final send off, we'd like to have actionable items on the show to give to people. So besides your show, because absolutely go, please watch that show. What's another show with Black representation that you like, or another property or something like that you're like, hey, watch this? And if it's animated, I that's an A++. If it's not animated, that's fine. But I'm kind of brewing a couple of animated shows too.
If it's animated with like characters that are Black that are just like, they're not tokenized but are really cool. I already said Attack on Titan. I think a great one that does people of color really well, and not specifically Black, but people of color. And there is some alluding into some of the characters being Black, which is, again, my favorite anime, Full Metal Alchemist. It's also written by a Japanese woman, which I really love, which is why the women characters are written so fantastically well. If we're going old school, Bleach, Yoruichi is probably the baddest in the town. She's so great. And then also Tozen. The dude with the long braids. He's fantastic. There was one I was just thinking of, and it just Castlevania has one of the coolest Black characters. I love that character. Stone Ocean, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stone Ocean. One of the bad guys is Black, but he's written so really. He's just cool. Like, and the reason, and I go back to Castlevania. The reason I like the character in Castlevania is because he's a bad guy, but then he stops being. He's got a whole arc. He's got his whole redemption arc, and he's just a really great character. Hunter. There is when they go to Gon goes to Killua's family's mansion. There's like a bunch of butlers that kind of protect them. And one of them is this little Black girl. And she's a beast, like an absolute animal. She's like 4 feet tall, nothing but fire and fury. Speaking of Fire Force. Fire Force has a bunch of cool Black characters. Like, I love it. My Hero Academia, it's a very popular anime, but they got a bunch of Black characters who are really cool. And in every single one of the shows I just mentioned, the Black characters are not like, hey, they're Black. Hey, he's wearing a dashiki. Hey, he's got big lips like Mr. Popo. So they're Black characters who exist in the show, who have roles, and they do cool things, and they just so happen to be Black. And that's what's awesome about it.
I love that so much. That's an amazing list, guys. This is going to be on Spotify and Apple Music in the next couple of weeks. So if you lost that list, I'm gonna have to go back through, listen to that, and drop all of those in the links below. I have one recommendation that actually my wife put me on to, and I will praise this show forever. I'm almost positive it's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. It's called My Dad the Bounty Hunter. Have you seen this show?
I already like the title.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's science fiction. It's created by a Disney Pixar graphic designer, the CGI artist. So the show, and he called in all the favors to do this show. Everybody, all the artists on this show are like top Pixar heads of departments and stuff like that. He called in every single favor that this man had to be able to, like, he had been writing this show for you. You could tell, I dove into everything. I want to know everything about this show because it is one of the most beautiful shows that I have seen, like with characters, Black characters that are, especially with CGI, look like Black people. Like the hair texture, everything about them, their skin, the way that it reflects light, everything. Because it's made by a team of Pixar people that had a bunch of time and a bunch of money to really do this for a while, and it's just gorgeous, especially for a TV show. Every single episode looks like a movie. It's one of my favorite things. All Black family, and them being Black literally has nothing to do with the story. They just are a Black family. And the dad is a bounty hunter, and the kids, he's an interstellar alien bounty hunter. It's basically kind of like a Men in Black sort of thing, mixed with Star Wars, mixed with it's a bunch of stuff all kind of mixed together. It's a road trip show. It's kind of Mandalorian-esque, kind of like Black Mandalorian. Yeah. Basically, so it's just a series of adventures of this bounty hunter trying to catch someone. This doesn't give anything away. It's the conceit of the show. Like the first episode, he blasts off to go to work, and his kids don't know what he does, but they sneak in his car, and his car turns into a spaceship, and off they go. And then hilarity and aliens and all this stuff ensues, and I love it so much. Yeah, my wife put me onto it. She called me when I was at work and was like, me and the kids watched this show that we stopped watching it because we were like, we have to watch this with Dad. We have to wait till you can have to watch this. But that's my recommendation. It's on Netflix. Again, that's My Dad the Bounty Hunter. It's amazing. It's a super cool show. But do me a favor one more time for people who are just jumping in or people who've been listening this whole time and forgot specifics. Drop your name, what you do, and where people can find you. Drop your Patreon. Drop a bunch of stuff. Plug all the things.
Okay, so name is Batsu Ohno. I am the creator of Guardim, the animated series here on TikTok, and that is at Guardim Official. So if you're seeing it on his live, it's at Guardim, Guardim Official. My Patreon is patreon.com/NOTK, which is Night Skins of the Kuroi Pifu. And the Cash App is $Batsu Des. So BATSUDESU. And there's a couple more things I want to say real quick. Our team is pretty much black women. So we have our artist is a black woman. Our voice actress is a black woman. Our voice actor is a black man. And my project manager and my assistant, they're all black. So we are also looking for a second artist and an editor to help out with the show. So if you're hearing this and this stuff interests you, to mind you right now, it is a labor of love. We're all kind of just, the Patreon's only making about $200 a month. So we're kind of just all coming together as a collective to put out a really positive black media. But yeah, that's all the things.
Well, that's amazing. But thank you so much. I'm gonna once you start doing some more stuff, because I know that you got a lot of stuff cooking right now, and you all are building to release some newer content and kind of rework some lore and stuff like that. Once we start getting some more of that, I want to have you back on, maybe in the middle of the summer, towards the end of the summer, give you a couple months to cook, baby.
I would love that.
Yes. So I would love that so much. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Thanks you to everybody for listening, and everybody have a good night. We love you all.
May the night bless you and keep you safe.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Before... Can you do the voice? Can you do a send-off with the voice, please?
Hello, everyone. I am Yas for the strongest fist among all the Nightskins. And as we say here in Rohikwa, may the night bless you and keep you safe.
May the night bless you and keep you safe. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Conscious Environment Podcast. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. And thank you again to my guests for coming and hanging out with me. That was an amazing conversation, and I had so much fun with you. We're definitely going to have to do that again. If you want to support the show, there are Cashapp and Venmo links down below, as well as a link to our brand new Patreon. And patrons, you don't only get to unlock some exclusive, amazing tiers that we have over there, but you get to unlock exclusive pricing at our merch store. So go and check that out. If you can't support the show financially, I completely understand, but a 5-star review goes a long way on Apple Music and Spotify and all those places, as well as downloads for some reason. So if you want to help our rankings, just simply download the show. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. But you know what else doesn't cost you anything? Telling a friend or telling your mama. It's going to be their favorite show. And remember, one last thing. I love you, and go drink water. Like right now. Go drink water right now. Stay hydrated. All right. See you next week. Bye.